it's me, Angelica Cheyenne, aka the Chocolate Diva. I'm here with
Marcus Garcia, aka GROOVyie.
and this is the Chocolate Diva Talk Show. Stay tuned.
Hey.
Happy Friday, everybody. It's me, Angelica Cheyenne, aka the Chocolate Diva, back again, once again with a hot underground multifaceted artist is all I can say about that. He actually was adding some ad-libs in my intro first ever to do that, so you know he's special. I welcome the hip-hop activist, the Morin X queerhood creative curators, Marcus Garcia, aka GROOVyie, and yes, this is from his words to the Chocolate Diva Talk Show. So what's poppin'?
What's up, man? Yeah, I was shocked. You actually pulled that from the website. That's cool.
I sure did.
Bet.
I sure did. I was like, I hope you remember what he says, because I will find it. However, I have to ask, because you're very confident in being queer, which is awesome.
Definitely.
Are you a member of the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think that, like, I didn't come out, whatever the hell that means, right? Like, that
Right.
means so many different things for so many different people.
Right.
Until, like, my senior year in college. And so I wouldn't say that I lived a full queer life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't think that I definitely did that, but now I definitely identify as queer. Very proud of it and take all the backlash from that too.
I mean, look, it's nothing wrong with living in your truth. But I will say queer, I know, is, from my understanding, is used like as the umbrella term that encompasses so many different factors.
Yeah, it can be.
So where do you fall in the spectrum? Gender fluid, bisexual?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I definitely identify as pansexual.
Okay.
For those who don't know, it means like I'm attracted to everybody. So non-gender identifying people, men, women, everyone. If I'm attracted to you, I'm attracted to you. But I'm very demisexual, so
Okay.
you know, I can't just be like, yo, they popping. What's good? Like, we have to really build a relationship and things like that. So
I respect it. I
Yeah.
mean, fellow supporter Miley Cyrus, I understand she identifies as being a pansexual. So, I mean, more power to you and whoever you love, because love is good, right?
is Miley like problematic though? I don't know.
Ah,
I was like, hold on.
depending on who you
let's be
ask.
honest.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Miley is all right in my book, but
I'm not gonna shout her out again.
certain actions can be deemed by some as problematic.
That's cool.
Yes. Now, it is Fun Fact Friday, so I love to spill the tea, especially personal tea. So, what is some true tea about yourself that most people will be surprised to find out about you?
Oh, something true about myself that people will be surprised. Definitely. I actually am. I get social anxiety. Like, a lot of people think that like I'm loud and like, you know, I'm outgoing and I'm very extroverted, right? So I get my energy from people, but I actually do get a lot of social anxiety, like going into places or like being on stage or, you know, doing anything like that. I think that like being loud and being outgoing actually is like a coping mechanism where I'm like, okay, I got all this built up, you know, energy, like let me just get it out and be, you know, jiggy with it. So I think that people kind of look at it the wrong way. I think people are like, oh, he just wants all this attention. I'm like, I do not like attention, bro. Like, if I could do whatever I can do and not, you know what I'm saying, just stay away from all that, exit the side door, I'd definitely do that. I don't like awards or nothing like that, so.
That is so crazy to hear because usually when you see people who are so vocal as yourself, it usually goes hand in hand. Not always.
And it's good for them. I'm like, that's just not me.
You know, but it's crazy that you admit being, you know, more social anxiety ridden maybe than other people who demonstrate certain behaviors. So was your way of being loud and outgoing your way to force yourself out of your comfort zone?
I think so. I think that like I just grew up in a very like loud environment, you know what I mean? And like my mom is very anxious as well. And so, but she's a loud person, like she'll pop off, right? I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, she's a great person, but I'm like, hold on, not like that. But, but I think that like just growing up in a very loud environment, it was like, okay, cool. Like it doesn't matter if you're as outgoing as my dad, who he's very social, or like a little bit more shy like my mom, like both of y'all are loud. So, I mean, just default is just to be loud anywhere. So. For sure.
I mean, I will say this. I feel like sometimes we can have different qualities about ourselves that are executed in different ways.
Yeah.
But the core of who we are can still be totally opposite.
Yeah, but it stays consistent with that. Yeah, I get you.
You know, most definitely. So what is something that you have done that maybe some people would not guess you would have just based off of knowing you personally?
I don't think people, it's not necessarily, well, maybe it's an accomplishment. It's like a personal accomplishment. But like, I definitely enjoy, and some people have commented on it, but I really take my writing seriously. Like, I don't know if it's just, you know, however it comes out is however it comes out. If it's a poem, if it's just an excerpt, if it's, I don't know, like just a monologue or whatever. Like, I really take writing very serious, and I think that for me, like, that's my biggest personal accomplishment. Like, some people can see, like, oh, you know, the bachelor's degree and, like, you know, just doing stuff like this. Like, this is stuff that, like, my homies growing up, like, we don't do stuff like this. You know what I mean? So I think for people back home, like, especially in the IE, we don't really look at these type of things as, like, the accomplishment. But I think for me, like, just being in my house, reading as much as I read now, which I hated reading growing up. Right. And just being so deep into writing, like, that's a personal accomplishment every single time I post something. And I write much more than what I post. You know what I mean? So I think every single time I actually get to post something, that's like a personal win. I don't even care if it gets like 12 likes. You know what I mean? Like,
because that's your passion.
It's a super deep passion. I don't think people like think about it like that for me because it's like, oh, he's not popping with that. Yeah. Like, yo, it's all good. Like, I really enjoy it.
And that's so amazing to hear and dope that you derive so much passion from like sitting down and physically writing.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, writing is very therapeutic.
Yeah. And
the fact that you take so much pride in it is something I feel like is missing in creative expression overall, period.
It is, man. Yeah. It really is. Especially like, because people want to be popping. Like, people much rather be, you know, famous than great. And sometimes you can't, like, some people choose to be one or the other, right? And so I think for me, I'd much rather be great than be known for it, you know what I mean, or be popping and things like that. I just want to make sure that, like, you know what you're getting from me, like, for sure.
Do you feel like that the fame from being great comes usually once that person is gone?
Nah, I think people say that, right? Like,
it's like give people your flowers when they're here. Like, that's the common theme of,
somebody takes your life and things like that. I don't think so, man. I think, like, sure, like, we definitely don't appreciate things when it's here. Like, hindsight is 20/20. I'm sure for even, like, the people that, like, when you do something, you look back later on, you're like, oh, that was kind of dope. Like, I didn't think it was that dope when I did a 6th grade recital, but, like, that was kind of cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't look at it that way, but, I don't know. I think there's a counter argument to all of that for sure.
I mean, it's something to ponder. I personally feel like you said, sometimes people are so focused on being famous and known that they don't focus on just the little things that make them great.
And like, there's no shade at that. Like, people, I think it's a coping mechanism at the same time. Like the same way I cope with being loud and things like that. You know, an Instagram model might find that to be their like pleasure throughout something. Like,
everybody gotta find their niche. So where did the name Groovy come from? Like, why did people start calling you that?
So
story time.
All right, honey. So my brother, Jonathan Garcia, he growing up I was like overweight. Like, I was really overweight, and people always shocked about that because like, yo, you so thin. I'm like, yeah, bet. It's it now. Yeah, I was like short and chubby and ugly and things like that, and then I grew like 8 inches, was popping, you know what I'm saying, out here. But my brother always would get at me, like, we always get on each other, like, you know, just playfully, and he's like, bro, but you still fat. And I'm like, nah, bro, I'm not fat no more. What you mean? And he's like, nah, you're not fat. You like groovy like Schoolboy Q. And I was like, hey, that kind of hits, bro. And he was like, bet, all right, we gonna keep that. And so we just kind of kept it going. I thought it was just gonna be a me and him thing. Like, but like literally, my girlfriend at the time, like, she would make me shirts that say Groovy on it, like birthday presents will always say Groovy on it, all these different things. And like, you know, the term, like the word groovy is like pretty common. So anything that people find, like, they'll just give it to me. They're like, yo, I thought about you. And I'm like, bet. Like, that's kind of cool. Like,
I mean, that's trippy, and it's so funny how our childhood nicknames could stick.
Yes.
I remember when I heard the story of Ice Cube and how he got his nickname. I guess when Ice Cube was younger, his older brother's girlfriends used to call the house, and he would pick up and try to, like, you know, spit game at him. And his older brother had, you know, was teasing him, was like, man, you think you so cool. You think you so cool, like Ice. And then it just evolved from there. So it's funny how brothers can kind of give you something that sticks with you forever.
Yeah, he put me on.
For real. So what part of Groovy represents you?
Oh, what part of Groovy represents Marcus, or? You know what I mean?
As you're being you as Marcus. I mean, if you want to get into Freudian psychology, ID, ego, super ego. Yeah.
I think for me, I think it was like sometime like 2 years ago, something like that. I was talking to a friend, and they were like, you know, you should. They were going through like not necessarily a crisis, but just kind of being like, I need a different alias, and like, you know, just to make them feel more comfortable and not like, you know, nicknames tend to do that. And I was like, well, I feel like GROOVyie kind of already does that for me. Like, you know, for me, like GROOVyie is the guy at the party that everyone knows, and like, you know, the loud dude and super social and going out doing this and the third out here. But for me, you know, Marcus is a lot more serious and, you know, family oriented, a lot more quiet. I'm the youngest out of all my family, and I'm the youngest out of all my cousins.
Oh, you're the baby.
I'm the baby, right? So it's like, to me, that's Marcus. I'm the observer, the learner, the scholar, things like that. But, you know, all the outlets, that's for sure GROOVyie.
So how did you develop into the GROOVyie image? Because I feel like everyone has an image, even if you don't know you do.
Right.
There's a way that people see you, which is your image.
People definitely do. Yeah, I think it just came like around the time that people started calling me GROOVyie. Like, I got the name like right when my brother gave me the name right when I started college. And by my third year in college, I had transferred into the Johnson program where I graduated from the University of Redlands.
Yeah.
And there, like, everyone would just call me GROOVyie, and I was like, bet, like, this is a new chapter in my life. You know, I finally got into a program I'm really proud to be in. Yeah. And it was just a whole different lifestyle. Like, that was the first and only year, really, that I was, like, single in college. So I had never experimented with, like, casual sex, or I had never really experimented with, like, a lot of my different identities, right? And so that was super new for me. I didn't even like go to college parties my first 2 years of college. I didn't do so many different things that a lot of college kids do. And I was just trying to find, like, where do I fit in that kind of scenario? And so I think that first year, they kind of set the tone where it was like, oh, like this is comfortable for me. Like, this is popping. Some things might not be comfortable with how I approach it. I was just trying stuff out. But from there, it was kind of like, oh, bet, like, this is who GROOVyie is. Because when I would go to parties, people would never say Marcus. Like, when I would, you know, be on stage doing whatever or DJing whatever, it was never Marcus the DJ. It was always GROOVyie, or, you know, you're hooking up with GROOVyie or whatever. It was like super weird, but it was like, bet, like, I actually feel comfortable putting my business out as GROOVyie, but you're not gonna know Marcus. Like, that's cool.
I mean, I guess that can work in certain situations. Like, you meet someone and y'all may get to it, and you don't want to see him no more. Be like, you didn't, you what? You didn't meet me. You met GROOVyie. Like, bro, I'll let him know you hit him up. You know, like,
I'm not gonna say I haven't ghosted people, but like, you know what I'm saying?
GROOVyie ghosted people.
Bro, you gonna get me in trouble. I'm a great guy. I'm a great guy, yo. I'm a great guy.
Right. But in all seriousness, do you feel like GROOVyie is an alter ego or an extension of yourself?
Oh, I think that's a great question. I think it really, really did start off as a extension of myself. And honestly, it got to a point around my senior year, like last year, where it did become like more of an alter ego, but in a really bad way. It was kind of like, you know, when the partying isn't satisfying you no more, when the you know, casual hookups or whatever you're looking for to cope with, it doesn't satisfy you anymore. It's kind of like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this, that, and the third going on in my life. And like, people that was there for the party ain't there for when, you know, stuff hits the fan. And so it kind of became to the point where I was like, man, I don't even want to do this no more. Like, I don't even want to be this guy no more and things like that, because the partying is over. You know what I mean? Like, the all this stuff is over. I don't want to do that stuff no more. And so it definitely got to a point where it was an alter ego, and I didn't know how to switch it. You know, it kind of just stayed in that zone. But, you know, dealing with insecurities and being vulnerable with yourself, especially as a brown man, like, it's tough. And so definitely been taking steps, for sure.
I mean, I think it's good to acknowledge, like, when we need to grow.
Yeah.
And, like, when we need to adjust certain things. Now, in music, it's not uncommon for people to have certain sides, because you do music that they express. Like, I remember when Nicki Minaj came out, she had Roman, and she had Nicki.
Right.
And I was like, Roman was the bad side. So I feel like, you know, especially if you believe in, like, yin and yang and good and evil, it's always two opposing sides, even internally. So when it comes to your music, when do we see Marcus Garcia, which is a more humanistic, maybe vulnerable, serious side, as opposed to GROOVyie that may give in to inhibitions and it's just more out there?
That's a great question. I think like I'm definitely searching through that right now. As I'm working on like more music and stuff like that. Brown skin baby. Plug. I think it's a combination of both, and again, like kind of going back to learning how do I balance both of these things, right? Because a lot of people who come from marginalized communities of color can talk about like, yo, I'm from the hood, I'm this, that, and the third, and it's like, bet, like that can be true.
Yeah.
But not everyone that's from the hood is, you know, I hate saying like in the streets and stuff like that, but not everyone's doing that dirt, you know what I mean, on the main line.
Which
like
is true.
And not everyone is, and like that's not for everybody, and you know. So I think that like balancing being like, yo, like people knew GROOVyie because he was the poppin' dude, whatever, but people really knew him because I was also putting out like, yo, I'm not from where most of you college kids are from. Like I did not grow up with, my parents didn't pay nothing in college, you know what I mean? Like it was definitely like a community effort. At the same time, I didn't have a lot of support in certain different ways, right? So I think it's balancing that. So when you hear like that street stuff, whatever you want, you know, I hate using that, but you know, street stuff, it's definitely being like, bet, like I did see this and do this and experience this and the third. At the same time, man, like a lot of people do, and a lot of people ain't about that. And I'm like, bro, at the same time, as much as I am like a hood dude, bro, I'm like the biggest nerd you might meet, and like I'm a vulnerable person, I'm a whole person. So I think like I've been trying to get more Marcus into the music, where it's like, man, I'm a vulnerable dude. Like I'm really trying to be as open and challenge myself to really channel my insecurities, because we all got that. We all ain't from the hood, but we definitely all have insecurities. So let's talk about something that's really real.
So in your music, especially Leave It to GROOVyie, which I enjoyed a lot, it delved a lot into culture, community, crime, like stuff that goes in a lot of people's lives, like a lot of stuff that goes down, period. Right. What did you witness happening around Fontana that inspires you to start putting it on paper and rapping about it?
So there's two things, right? There's what I witnessed in my community, and then there was from like family and things like that, right? It's weird because Fontana, me and my friends that do music and we've been working on this stuff, we talk about it so much, about like there's so many experiences in Fontana and it's hard to conceptualize it all, right? But for my experience, I would see a lot of people who are sheltered, right? Like you go to school, you do this, you do that, but you go home, you don't really be in the community, like because maybe your parents are scared, or you know, whatever it is. And, you know, it's a predominantly Latinx community. And so a lot of, you know, conservative type of viewpoints about things as well. So it was kind of like weird being like, bet, like a lot of people aren't out here with this, that, and the third, but all my family's from Compton. You know, all my family are from, you know, South Central and things like that. So I could see what it really is in you know, gang culture, whatever it was. And then I see it happening in the IE, and it's kind of like bad. Like you can't even shelter me from it, because I'm growing up with it. I'm seeing it with my family and, you know, my friends in my neighborhood and things like that. So it's kind of like, you know, in certain parts of Fontana, and in certain parts of my family, like it is the stereotypical movie hood experience, whatever. But honestly, man, I think that we really need to give more credit to the IE about fostering community. Like I don't think we're that good at youth development. I don't think we're good at, you know, channeling a person's self-expression, to be honest. But I do think that, you know, growing up in IE, where it's, you know, it's a desert, it's kind of country-like in a way. Yeah. You kind of definitely learn a lot of community values. And so to me, that's the biggest thing I think we should all acknowledge about, you know, Fontana and IE. It's a community effort. Yeah. Did
you grow up hip-hop, or were you exposed to it later?
That's a good question. I've been talking about that a lot lately, actually. So in my household, my dad loves metal.
Really?
Right, he loves metal. He loves rock and roll from, you know, the 80s, a little bit of 70s.
You like hair bands?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, out here. My mom loves country, right? So, like, and like I said, you know, being around my cousins, like in Compton at my grandma's house, like we would be there all the time, like throughout elementary. You know, that was what was playing on the radio and what my cousins were playing and things like that. So we kind of fell into it a little bit, you know, mid elementary. And it was like popping when like Nelly did a song with when Nelly did a song with like Tim McGraw. It was like, oh man, like
it's all in my head.
Like I was like, that's my mama's dude right there. Like, that's what's up. But it was cool because we got introduced. You know, a lot of people get a different introduction to things like that. It's just what's popping, whatever. But my cousins were like, bro, like, have you heard of Outkast? I'm like, what is this? And right, and so my favorite album of all time is The Love Below. Speak About the Love Below, right? And people don't think about it like in a box, like that might be just a good album. I'm like, bro, that came out in 2003. That's when 50 Cent and like gangster rap was popping, and you're gonna have a dude talking about Pink and Blue and Dracula's Wedding, and it's like, that's the weirdest thing. And so it was kind of like a good experience to be like, oh, this is what hip hop is. You could be anything. You could really express yourself in a weird way and talking about this and the third, wearing everything that Andre 3000 was wearing, or you could be gangster rap, and like both are true. Both are very true to their own experiences. So.
But in the beginning, so would it be Nelly that really like was the first artist, or which artist was like the first hip hop artist that really made you like be like, yo, I need to get into this more?
The first artist that really got me into it was Ludacris, for sure. It was just like, he was so animated.
Yes.
Like his music videos, like akin to, you know, like Missy Elliott's music videos, were just like, y'all are some weird people, man. And like, but it's jiggy, and it's like you want to dance to it and you can feel it, but you know, it's just that flow, the delivery. Like I would look up, you know, we would watch like Rap City, The Basement all the time. It was like Ludacris was popping on there like 4 or 5 times. Like,
right, he stayed on the music countdown.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like him, DMX, like just being so raw and like yelling all the time, and like old groups like, you know, Tribe and Onyx. Like
they need to bring Rap City back, like for real.
But wait, who?
Shoot, they can just like do reruns and just.
We can do reruns. I'm not trying to hear little, you know what I'm saying, Antibiotic spit a flow on it. Like, I'm not trying to hear that.
Or there's a concept, we can have a Rap City Underground and literally get all the hottest underground MCs who really spit fire, because they're out there.
They out there.
Like Earth Gang, for sure.
Earth Gang is dope.
Yeah.
Earth Gang is
dope. We have some people, you know, that are marinating in the back. But what about hip-hop sparked your love for it and made you want to create it yourself and represent for your city?
I think that's like, this is probably the most stereotypical answer you'll hear, but like, you know, I would hear them talk about stuff that like, it reflects on me, but it helped me actually understand my life more, right? Like, when people would talk about like parents arguing this and the third, like I thought it was normal to have your parents like arguing all the time, right? Like, and have like an unstable environment all the time. I thought that was normal. But when you hear an artist say like, yeah, that was tough and I didn't know how to deal with that, so it drew me to this and the third, it was kind of like, oh, bet, like I see my parents tripping, the homie's parents are tripping, that's why he's involved in this and the third. Oh, for sure. Like I really would learn from music and hip hop specifically. Like me and my brother talk about all the time. Like we learn more through music than we ever did in the classroom. And both of us have an undergrad degree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we could easily say like this helped raise us for real. And I think it just like conceptualized everything for us. So once that started happening, it was kind of like, bet, like this is something that helps me really understand myself. I don't even have to, you know, most days when I'm having like especially growing up, like I would have tough days, right? And it's kind of like, bet, like I could see how I could start tripping right now and, you know, go sell weed and go, you know what I'm saying, pick this up, do this, that, and the third. But I don't even have to do that. I listened to DMX say it. I got it out. Like that was my self-expression. I don't need to do nothing to nobody. So
I mean, I think you can learn from people from listening, and you can also, when you listen to it and like are really internalizing it, you can connect with it, and you can like learn from it. Like from what not to do, or get inspiration of how to do something a different way. So what artists were instrumental in you merging hip hop with activism? Because hip hop originally before, it was a form of activism.
Oh, definitely was. Yeah, you know? definitely. I think that
it still is, but you know.
It is in certain pockets, right? Like JPEG Mafia and then like certain people like that, like for sure are coming to the forefront. Definitely, Public Enemy was like the first one, right? Like I said, I had pretty like, I was just very grateful to have been introduced to like so many great legends, setting the platform for me to kind of grow off in hip hop, right? Like Run DMC was like my first group I ever really listened to and stuff like that. But Public Enemy definitely, it was like, oh, bet, like y'all talking about some empowerment. Y'all really talking about something that you're trying to uplift each other. Like I can listen to NWA all I want and I can connect with it because it's like, yo, my family lives in Compton. Like I know exactly what y'all talking about, but I don't live in Compton, so I don't really understand that. But Public Enemy's empowerment, like that's more universal. And so definitely Public Enemy, definitely Ice Cube's first album. Who else got me into like activism? Nas, in many ways. I think Nas kind of helped me. Nas is my favorite rapper. Nas really made me understand storytelling
Mm-hmm.
and connecting that with whatever your experience is. Because, Nas, what most people from the outside looking in might see Nas as like, oh, he's a storyteller, but he talks about crack and talks about all this stuff. He must be hard, but he's like, bro, I'm just telling it like what it is. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I'm not saying that I'm the dude that's doing that, but I'm saying this is what it really is. And so I think that understanding like Public Enemy and Ice Cube and, the importance of being raw about your message, but also I'm like, I can tell my message through storytelling. I'm a storyteller. I'm a writer. That's by heart. That's who I am. Mm-hmm. So definitely those people.
Oh, that's definitely dope. I feel like you are very honest. Like you said, Nas would rap about things that he witnessed, but he was honest. It's not like he was speaking firsthand.
Right.
And the fact that you are very clear in your music, like, this is what I see.
Yeah.
Not what I do.
Right.
Because sometimes that can get misconstrued, or even the person rapping may tell it from a perspective like they really in it and they're not. So how do you use your lyricism to illustrate bigger issues through your music?
I think just giving a perspective, like not with, I don't think I've done it nearly as well as I should have in the past like projects, but definitely like the music I'm writing now is like, being honest and like being vulnerable about it. Like something that's really challenging to me. I could talk about like the homie dumped somebody and da-da-da-da-da, but it's like, okay, bet, but do I understand what led that person to that? Like, maybe they got something going on with themselves. And, a lot of people kind of look at it and be like, that person's an animal. He's a murderer. Like, how could he ever do that? Yeah. But it's like, bro, we are all people. Like, you have as much power to do what he did as he did. You know what I mean? Like, we all could do that. And so I think for me, it kind of is about channeling that inner realness about being like, yo, I could be a person. I could murder someone. Like, I'm a male, identify as a male. I could really like hurt a woman. Like that is real. And like I could really do a lot of bad stuff. Like, and a lot of it just comes from like understanding and continuing to try to understand like masculinity for me personally. Like, what does it mean to be a brown man from the hood? What does it mean to be a brown man that also has been in relationships with women? Like, I have these insecurities. I could take it out on both these communities. So making sure that I don't do that, let's examine what brings people to that. I had to dive into those insecurities. I had to really dive into like, how am I going to take care of myself and be honest with myself, especially even my struggles. Like, it's really just pointing the gun back on you, being like, bro, like, what's wrong with you? Like, for real. Because you could blame it. You could blame your parents. People blame the hood all the time. People blame about this person, that person cheating on you, da-da-da. But it's like, bro, at the end of the day, like, you have to grow from that. Or else you're going to continue the same thing. Personal
responsibility is a must for success, period.
Yeah.
Because once you acknowledge the injustice of the world, you have to realize, okay, how am I contributing to that if I am? Or, how can I grow from that?
Yeah.
So as much as you can. So how much of your reality is accurately represented in your rhymes? Because in writing, sometimes people can, what I like to say is, add fluff. It's not really lying or embellishing. It's just more like, stretching the truth a little bit.
Yeah, exaggerating a little
bit. For, dramatic purposes or for shock value. So how much of your reality is accurately represented in your music?
I really don't think I don't write for anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, I think this project that I'm working on, this is the most structured and thought. We have a thinking take, of people who are like, how are we going to apply to this audience, especially, I don't write for myself a lot more. And like anymore as much. Like a lot of people from the IE, tell me like, I'm listening to this. I have a little sister that listens to my music. My mom says she wants to start listening to my music. So it's like, bet, like, how am I going to articulate what's going on with me to make sure that they understand and that they support it and, they feel included. So for me, I don't write for anybody else. I really don't care about popping. Like, if I'm gonna be popping anything else, it's definitely not gonna be music. And like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I write for myself, and so I don't think I feel like I'm trying to be that antithesis, whatever, of like trying to pop off. Like, I'm writing to be on some real stuff. I write really to inspire other people who don't think they're good at it.
Yeah.
It's not about being good at it. It's about, does it work for you?
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm good at it. It really makes me feel good. Like, it really helps me. And so people that I write for that. And so I never write for shock value. I don't think I've ever written for shock value.
I think it's good to see that you have so much passion, which hip hop was founded on. I feel like when hip hop was started, it was not started to become pop. I mean, they was just doing like what they was doing, and people caught on, and people was like, yeah, this is what's up. But it was never intended to be what we know it to be now. Yeah. So I think, you know, in certain instances, hip hop has become synonymous with pop. You know, pop has always been most popular. Definitely, you know, what everybody loves. Whereas you're more, you know, 90s boom bap. Like, this is what I see in my community. This is what I want to be changed and done about it, or this is how I'm living, or how I don't want people who are behind me to live, you know? Yeah. So I feel like it's more like underground hip hop, which I feel like is something that we need to see more of. We have to have more of a variety.
Definitely. You know? Definitely.
So, you do have your own website, groovyie.com, which I would encourage everyone to visit. It's definitely
it's big lit. GROOVyie, GROOVyie.com.
He has a lot of different, you know, things about himself, from his music to his poems, all of that, which I do enjoy his poetry. You know, it's different.
Appreciate you.
You're welcome. So I have to ask, favorite poet?
Danette Smith.
Okay.
Off the top.
Why?
It's crazy. Most of these people, I get into a lot of different scenarios because I know people that know people that know people.
Yeah.
And I just get into the right rooms at the right times. Danette Smith came in, did spoken word on one of their books at the University of Redlands. And my friend was like, yo, like, they're dope. We have to go see them. They're, you know, a non-binary, queer poet. You have to come see them. I was like, bet. Like, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
I went, and they just killed it. Like, I have never felt so a part of a poem that wasn't written for me. Like, I had never felt that way from poetry. And I thought they were like underground, like no one really knows about them. And then it turns out like they're Danette Smith. And so I think like, yeah, their cadence. One, you can read it by yourself, never hear about them performing and still be hit the same way. But I want to do poetry that actually hits someone like that. Like really like the most abstract, indirect way that might just slap you in the face while you thinking about it. And their performance is ridiculous. I wish I could ever. They have so much personality. They bring their character into it, and I strive. I aspire.
Right. Yeah. What's is their favorite poem? Like, what is your favorite poet by them?
Oh, it's probably not even like the first one that pops in my head is it's I don't know the title, but it's on YouTube. They're talking about like if I was a 90s R&B singer, whatever. And it's the funniest thing. They're like talking about, yeah, I just stand by the window and watch the rain with my robe half undone, drinking wine about the man that I don't even have. I was like, bet, same. I feel it.
Satire can sometimes be the best.
It's the dopest thing. Man.
Sometimes, yes. So when did your poetry and music intersect one another?
I want to say, really, honestly, very recently. I want to say very, very recently. I think that before I was really trying to rap, be like, I'm a rapper. I'm going to spit bars. I'm going to align it, 4 bars and 4 bars, whatever. And now it's more like I'm writing to really articulate exactly how I want to articulate it. And I'm going to match it to the beat later on. Like, I'm going to match it to the mood later on. We'll figure everything else out. But this message is going to get across. And, with poetry, at least with my poetry, like, I try to write it just to really hit the shock value as far as, like, I wanted you to really feel exactly what the hell I mean, even if I didn't say it directly. Most of my, music is, like, very much black and white. The homie did this, they did this, I saw this, boom, whatever. But my poetry, I think it's more about, like, you don't know what's going on. I'm telling the story, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about, though. Or you don't, and that's the point, too. And so, yeah, I definitely think very, very recently.
I mean, I will say I've read a few of your I'm talking about, like, pretty much all of your poems I've read on your website. I feel like in some poems there's a lot of ambiguity, and I feel like that's the point.
Yeah.
Because at first I'm like, okay, let me reread, because I always like to reread poems like multiple times just to get the understanding and then find the deeper meaning in them.
Right.
But I feel like sometimes your poems have a meaning without expressing the meaning.
Yep,
it's
definitely.
Like just for the simple fact of
however
it
you
is what it is.
Yeah, or however you take it.
Right. So I think I do like that about your poetry. So you yourself, you do spoken word, right?
I do, yes.
Okay.
I do.
So the thing I used to love most about certain hip hop artists is that they would mesh their spoken word with their hip hop, and sometimes the way that they would rap their bars would be like they were saying something spoken word. Like artists like Talib Kweli, Mos Def, and Common are like known for their spoken word. Either off their hip hop tip or when they're doing their hip hop. Do you believe that spoken word is the basis of your lyricism?
Now it is, definitely. Okay. It really, really is. I think, actually, going back to the first question, like, it definitely did start around Leave GROOVyie Alone. I think I had, like, a couple poems that just turned into songs. And you can kind of tell. Like, if it's not, like, a hip-hop beat, you know what I mean? Like, it definitely was bomb. Yeah, I definitely think these days it's really much more about that. And it's just, you know, as much as I kind of grind my teeth at it, you do have to really learn how to approach the audience, like if that's what your plan is. And I think my plan with, you know, this project coming up, Brown Skin Baby, it really is about like kind of getting the message out, getting a higher platform for like these messages to be, you know, heard and talked about. So I think a lot more. It's kind of like both, right? Like I'm hyper focusing on my message, which is just my writing, which is just this. At the same time, I really do have to get out of my comfort zone and being like, okay, but how is this going to really hit someone? How is this going to actually reach the audience? Now I care about that.
I mean, I do like the fact that you care a lot about, you know, dispersing your message in multiple ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the people who may listen to spoken word and who may be into poetry may not always be listening to it in hip hop.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's certain people who like to keep hip hop for like party purposes.
Right.
And then there's some people who like to get into hip hop because of their deeper message and the meaning.
Yep.
I feel like it's like polar opposites now. I feel like people you like hip hop because they want lyricism or they want to turn up.
Yep.
It's no middle ground. Yep. But do you feel like spoken word has strengthened you as a hip hop artist overall?
I think it strengthened me as a person, and I think like that's, like I said before, like I'm trying to bring more of my character into hip hop. I think I'm really trying to bring my full self, come as I am, into hip hop. When before it was kind of like I say, it was more of a coping mechanism. It was more like I don't want to deal with myself, so let me talk about the surface level. And now it's like, man, we're gonna really try to dig in deep. And the easiest way for me to dig in deep, as you can see on the website, is through poetry. You know, I don't know why it happens to be that instead of like the bars. But it is, you know, so I try to bring it with that.
I think it just depends on the feeling, because I hear that, you know, sometimes artists like to express themselves different ways depending on their mood.
Yeah. You
know, so I feel like that could just be the reason. But what was the most rawest poem that you ever written?
There's two. There's one. It's a song called Saw the Sun on Leave GROOVyie Alone, which I wrote it, I think, like 2 years before I even recorded it. And it was about a friend. It was really like the closest friend that I had ever known that had gotten killed. And it was such a weird time. Like I had just started college, so that's a big change in my life, right? And like there's always this what we call cultural schizophrenia, being like I'm a college student, so I'm too smart to be a hood kid, but I'm too hood to be a college student. And so it's like, how do I really kind of balance that out? And so a lot of internal conflict, and, you know, having a good friend of mine be killed, and not just dying, but be killed. And he was actually killed by, you know, a rival gang, which actually he was killed by two of my other little homies. It's kind of like, you know, one of my friends is gone, two of my other little homies are in jail. Like, I'm mad at both. I'm mad at everyone involved. And so I really didn't know what the hell was going on. And so around that time, and, you know, a lot of baby mama drama with some of my other friends, it was like, man, a lot of weird stuff was just going on, which is a part of growing up. But I was like, I don't know what else to do, man. Like, I just started writing. And the other one was, it was in the Juicy EP. I think it was what's called Midnight. I forgot what it's called, but it's basically I was talking to this girl. I had just been in limbo of like a toxic relationship, going in and out, and I was feeling this other person I was seeing in the in between time, and it was kind of like, damn, like I'm really realizing my insecurities. Like, I hope they like me. I really hope that we vibe when we kick it. I really hope they mean what they say when they say it. At the same time, they might not like me for all these reasons that actually have nothing to do with the relationship. They might not like me because I don't have money to go see them when I want to see them. They might not like me because I just got out of a toxic relationship. They might not like me because of how much I like to do basic things like chill with my dad or go to the movies or play, go bowling, whatever. They might not like me for none of this. So, it's kind of like just all in all, both poems, I think, was just really about learning how to accept myself, for real.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that when it comes to relationships, those are tricky, whether they're platonic or not,
right.
Because sometimes we're in our head too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like, okay, we need to tell our own selves to shut up.
Right.
But
nice to trust.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the simple fact that you are so forthcoming about those secret conversations that we have with ourselves that nobody knows is something that in hip hop is something that's not always done, not from that perspective.
Yeah.
True. But I will say when it comes to your spoken word, I do see a lot of the influence, and I do see that your spoken word is something that is on its own, but I like to see how it's intertwined with your music.
Real.
Because I feel like spoken word is its own art, hip hop is its own art.
Right.
But if you can successfully take that and make a song out of it, I feel like you are stepping on the most impeccable territory ever.
Bro, I'll be the next Yasmin Bay.
Okay. It's incredible because it's already hard to write bars with meaning, and then you're mixing in poetry with it. It's crazy.
Big lit.
Okay, we need more of that. We got an R&B, Jill Scott and Erykah Badu's holding it down. Okay.
True. Who messed up? Was it Erykah Badu? Who supported R. Kelly?
I don't know, but I don't want to know.
I'm just saying, don't put my name with them.
I don't want to know. From what I recall, I don't recall either of them supporting R. Kelly.
Badu. I don't know.
I don't want to hear it. Even so, I'm going to act like she didn't say it. Okay? Period. So, in one of your songs, I believe it's not the one, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that you were the mayor of Fontana because you always come back.
That was East Side. That was E.
Dollar sign. Okay.
Yeah, East Side.
Okay. That was the one I was like, oh, okay. So what transitioned you into activism and being the main voice for your community?
Wow, that's a good question. I think
I got a lot of good questions.
You got great questions. I told you I'm curious I have no idea what you're gonna ask. I think that it, how do I say it? When I went to college, I only knew I wanted to go to college to help out my community. I didn't know anything else. I never traveled as a kid. I never left my neighborhood. I stayed in the same house my whole life. I stayed at, I grew up at the park. Just in my one neighborhood. And it wasn't like I even went around the city of Fontana. I would stay on my block. You know what I mean? So I only understood, I hyper-focused on Fontana. And so going to college, it was like, man, I could study a lot of different things and make money, whatever. But it was like, I really didn't grow up with money. I don't care about that. I just want to make sure, if my mom and dad can make enough with, my dad being in a union and working out routes and my mom having a job every now and then, I know I can make it happen. I'm not tripping off that.
Yeah.
So
we got to because them student loans about to kick in, bro.
Yeah, $500 a month. Help me. Okay, donate at GROOVyie.com.
We got to start our GoFundMe for college
help
students.
Me.
Yeah.
Help me. Come
right.
Through. But, it was funny because I went to, when I transferred into the Johnson program at the University of Redlands, in my interview, you have to, do a separate interview to get into that program. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you, dog, but I just want to help kids from the hood. I don't know what that means. I don't know what major that is. I don't know what that looks like, but I know that, I wouldn't have ever reached anything in any facet if it wasn't for my community. I had great teachers. Not many people have that. I had great coaches. Not many people have that. I had great parents that really, really tried and stayed in my life. Not many people had that. And so I think that, my community bigged me up. And I had big homies that would tell me, yo, don't hang out with us. We'd be like, yo, don't ride with us. Don't do this. You're the schoolboy. You're the good kid. Don't even trip. My cousins would tell me the same thing. And so it was how many of my homies were told that? None. And so I really want to be like that big homie in a structural sense because, I'm only one person, but policy can change a lot of things. Culture can change a lot of things. And so it was bet, these are the ways in which I want to do it. I want to affect art, which is going to affect culture, which is going to affect policy, which is going to affect community, which is going to affect youth. You know what I mean? And integrate everything. And so I just do that with every facet that I come with.
I feel like that's something that's needed because I was telling someone else earlier, image is everything. As much as we try to say, it's
Definitely
not.
can be, yeah.
And when people who come from the same things that you come from see, okay, he's from my neighborhood.
Yeah.
He's had the same life virtually as I have.
Right.
And he's here.
Yeah.
By simply making different choices than what maybe was the norm from someone who is from where we're from.
Definitely.
I feel like they can visualize that and see that, and they can use you as aspiration. Okay, this is like, I wouldn't say someone to follow because we have to, take our own roads, but like a focal point to see, like, okay, I can get here.
An influence.
It's achievable.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that is needed for everyone, especially young men.
Someone that they can believe, man. Someone that they can believe. Because you even get those teachers that really try, but you don't believe them. And that's the biggest thing. And they might be really good-hearted teachers, really hard-working teachers, but if it doesn't smack, it doesn't smack. So you got to find someone that you believe in for sure.
Most definitely. So what changes are you striving to achieve as an activist, and how are you using hip-hop to spread that message?
I think for sure, again, I'm always trying to come as I am. I'm a brown, queer, male, from the hood, all these different things, whatever, from the IE. And I really want to help. I'm not the only one, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like being like, I belong to so many different communities. I really want to be able to say, like, you can do that. Like, it's okay to be who it's okay for you to be yourself, but not even in all the good ways. Like, it's okay for you to be a messed up person, bro. Yeah. It's okay to have these insecurities about yourself, bro. It's really okay to talk about this and the third. I think that, like, my lens is always recently has been through, like, hyper masculinity. And so for me, the biggest change I want to make is for people who might share similar identities with me, where it's like, yo, you might not understand a lot of things. You might be, I was just talking to a student, I'm not gonna say his name, but I was talking to one of my students yesterday, and he was like, man, I'm going through all this stuff and I'm lost and I really don't know what to do. And I was like, that is beautiful. Like, for you, I know you're in it, so it seems terrible. I'm like, but that is one of the most introspective things that you can have and say, and that's okay. As real as it is for that to be okay, and that's real, it's also real that you're gonna be okay at the end, right? And so I don't think we talk about that enough with people who share like similar identities with me, especially brown men, especially people from the IE. And so for me, it's just coming as you are, man. You don't have to be bigging up all this stuff. And the Hollywood effect, man, is so real. People try to act like something they're really not. That the social media effect is so real, and it's like, dude, you don't need none of that to be happy, for real.
Right.
Like, I don't have none of that stuff. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I mean, just living life and breathing.
That's it. That's the biggest change I want. That's the change I want.
Yeah,
I just want you to be happy, bro.
Yeah, and I think that is something that is, people can relate to, because everyone at the end of the day wants something that makes them happy.
Yeah, but policy can help with that.
And that's very much true.
Culture can help with that, and music can help with that. All these things help.
Yes. So what progress has been made since your involvement in striving to rectify these injustices, and what role does the legendary Wholesome Crew play in your strides and struggles?
Woo. Hold on. I need a moment. All right. So the legendary Wholesome Crew. First and foremost, are my three brothers, and including me, four in total. Adrian McGee, Algernon McGee, Jonathan Garcia, Marcus Garcia. And it's such a counter narrative to anything especially in IE. Two black males, two brown males that are brothers. That is almost unheard of. Three. I'm assuming identifying straight males with a brother that's queer, that's fully accepting, fully loving, and curious and come correct. That's unheard of. Fully supportive. It's the biggest. They're the most important people in my life. I know that we're all the most important people in each other's lives, and being able to be, a male group that come to each other about, like, I'm struggling. That's a vulnerable thing. Crying with each other, coming to each other. That is, all these things are just so counter narratives to everything, especially for the IE. And so we try to spread that with everything that we do. And so I think that we are making an impact. I really fully believe that we have touched a lot of people. If we're out and you see all four of us, it's always love. Even people that don't really know us like that, it's always love. And I think that, like, people can actually see love from black and brown folks, like, together. That's unheard of in the IE, like, for real, like that. And I'm sure in other places, but, like,
I think that's California.
I
right
think
now.
that's just anti-blackness overall, right? Like
I think that's
everywhere.
a lot
And
of places.
so it's just, I think that's the biggest impact. And we are just such solid dudes. Like we grew up in rough times and rough areas and whatnot, but we never try to come off as that. We some goofy dudes. We just some regular solid people. I think like people have told us so many just nice things. We're affecting things on a political level and on in a structural level too.
Yeah.
But just being who we are, man, and just coming as we are, bro, it's the most beautiful thing. I'm so happy you asked that question.
Of course. I saw the picture of you guys. I'm like, oh, this is a beautiful thing to see. Not only camaraderie, but I think, so much, collectiveness.
Yeah.
Amongst you guys, because I feel like, I believe they were on one of your podcasts that I listened to.
Yes.
And when I heard your guys' story and the way you guys talk and your interaction, you can tell you're brothers. You're like the real life four brothers.
Yeah, no, we all right. Yeah, we're the real life four brothers. Like I'm Mark Wahlberg. We argue about that movie all the time. I'm Mark Wahlberg. I kicked that dude's butt at the end.
I feel like you probably Mark Wahlberg.
Big lit.
Okay, so I feel like you're the real life four brothers, and I think that being that they're black and you and your other friend are brown, I feel like that it's like saying volumes.
Yeah. Because
we all know the different things that we go through, as black and brown people in the whole rift and raft. But to see you guys come together despite all of that and being in a community that may not always be like that with each other.
Never like that.
I think it's really a dope thing to see. Now, you are very open about your emotional side, which is cool. Very. I feel like everyone should be vulnerable every now and again. So you were involved in DUES, which is the DUES Understanding Diversity and Ending Stereotypes program at the University of Redlands, which is your alma mater.
Yes.
What did you learn from that program, and how have you utilized it in your music and advocacy?
Yeah, so we definitely hyper focus on dissecting masculinity across so many different scenarios and cultures and things like that. Again, I think that just helped me really understand, like, okay, you a poppin' dude that likes to engage in a lot of sexual activity, bet. You like to pop off in this, bet. At the time I was like, bet, like you out here for sure. But do you understand that you can be harming a lot of people by popping the way you are and doing it mindlessly? Like you might think that, and just getting into messy situations, like for sure, being like, okay, bet you the king, but you setting up all these people for failure too, bro. Like you really are hurting a lot of people. So it's just really being like, oh, I'm responsible for myself. Yeah. And because I've been, just blessed and privileged enough to be able to be like, oh, I can take space for myself and observe and check myself and have people check me as well. I can now help other people check themselves. And so we definitely took a whole lens on a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds and being like, yo, we're going to talk about masculinity and how it really affects your life and how you also keep that going. And so bringing it into my music, that's why I try to approach it in such a vulnerable state, because that is the most egotistical thing you have on you. And so if I can get rid of that, if I can observe it, or maybe not even get rid of it, I can never get rid of it, but I can always be honest about it. That's a choice. So that's really where it comes into play.
I mean, that is something that I feel like needs to be addressed. And I think that in the generation that we are in now, it's something that's way more acknowledged. And people are working towards changing the narrative of what it means to be man and what it means to be a woman.
The matriarchy.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like sometimes it's okay, to be traditional, but in other ways, I feel like change is good.
Yeah, just don't be problematic. It's not that hard. We're not asking you to not be a man, not be a male. Just don't be weak.
Don't be problematic.
Don't be problematic
with
it. It's not that hard, dog.
Okay, so in a feature that you did with LA Times, you had said that there are stereotypes placed on men that we have to face, which pressures us to make decisions we don't have to make. Now, what stereotypes do you feel like you are disbanding in hip hop, and what types of stereotypical male behavior do you want to see be dissolved overall?
That it is scary to have a gun. Like, dudes be acting like, I'm selling all this stuff and I carry a gun. I'm like, bro, I've sold drugs before. Stop. I've carried a gun before.
Right.
Stop. Like, and there are certain situations, like, no one's a bad kid. There is no, like, he's a problem. He's a bad kid. Like, marginalized youth of color get put into situations to where you have to sell drugs sometimes, where you have to carry a gun, where you have to do all this stuff. I think that a lot of people take that hurt and try to big themselves up, where it's like, bet, like, I'm out here, I chose this, I'm da-da-da. It's like, no, you did not, bro. Like, no one did. Even if you felt like you did choose that, you weren't. Like, you're marginalized. You were trained.
You were conditioned.
Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. You were conditioned to believe that you have to do this. And the reality is you don't. There are other ways of getting through and getting by with this stuff. But at the same time, if you're going to choose that, I understand, because I did it too. But bet. Let's take that narrative. Let's go with it. But let's be honest. You didn't pick up that gun. You didn't hit that lick. You didn't do this. You didn't ride out with these dudes because it felt good and it was actually going to do something for you. You was hurt. You was lost. You didn't know what else to do. That's the blatant truth about 99.9% of these dudes, period.
And I think it's so amazing that you identify the process of conditioning. And I think that's what hip-hop used to be very cognizant of expressing. Is like you said, like people like DMX, it's like it's not something that I aspired and I grew up and said I want to do this, but this is what I know how to do because of where I come from. I've been conditioned to believe this and behave this way. And conditioning, I mean,
it's tough.
It can take years to undo certain things, hence why Lauryn Hill had the Miseducation Lauryn here. So with this program, do you feel like it was responsible for giving you the courage to explore other dimensions of music in your Juicy EP? Because that's like a whole shift from what you were doing, or at least you were putting out before.
The projects are very different. I definitely do. I think that, the Dudes program and, Reggie Robles and Zach Ritter and, even Amari, my partner, in the program, that gave me a space to really observe all these things. It gave me a space to be like, hey, you can mess up. You are conditioned to be problematic. Mess up. It's okay. We're going to correct you. But you really, come as you are, bro.
Air it out so you
can
fix
out.
It.
Like, we're going to see where you went wrong. And so it definitely helped me out in approaching that. And then, I made the Juicy EP around the same time I really, started to get deep into that program. And so that's when it was like, bet, I kind of want to make – the reason why it sounds different was because I really just wanted to experiment. I was tired of crying. I was tired of being like, I am hurt. I am a victim. I'm tired of victimizing myself. I don't know what else to do, though. But what I do know is I'm trying to have fun. I'm trying to be happy in the studio. I'm trying to be happy with writing songs. I'm trying to be happy. I'm trying to have a good time. And this is something that is a big part of me, being, just out here sexually and just experimenting and doing this, that, and the third. And it also is, it's a project about exactly where I was at the time, going in and out of a toxic relationship, Juicy, you can hear it and it's like, oh, bet this is just a bop. This is a good album, whatever. But if you really listen to it, I'm talking about like going through a toxic relationship. I'm actually going through struggle still. It's just in a different lens. It's not the hood. It's romantic relationships now. But it's approaching with that and it's being vulnerable about that, where it's like, bet, like this thing didn't work out. I made bad decisions in it to stay in it. And so we're going to learn from it now for sure. So, the Dudes program definitely, I never thought about that. But, I definitely recorded that during the same time. And it definitely influenced it.
I'm not going to lie. Like, when I listened to the EP, it sounded like a mix of Childish Gambino, like, but in the early 2000s, especially with, like, the voicemail messages.
Oh, yeah.
Those
were real, too.
Message. Oh, yes.
Those were natural. She didn't know I was going to put that on there.
I love voicemail messages. I don't know why. I feel like it makes it feel more realistic. Like, oh, snap.
Because it was real. It was like she didn't know. Shorty didn't know I was going to put that on there.
So I'm like, dang, how many? I don't leave voicemail. So I end up on an EP. But in all seriousness, do you feel like that this will be continuous, or is it just periodic? Because it's something that you went through during a certain period of time. Like, will we see this type of groovy again, or is it just like, I was having a moment? We'll be back to the traditional hip hop groovy like next album.
I think it's always going to influence me, right? Like that situation and so many situations that were happening at that time. Those deeply affect me. Like that was specifically with the relationship, right? Like that was the first time I was in love, first heartbreak, like first time being in a toxic relationship, all these different things, right? So like that's gonna stick with me forever. But just it's gonna affect me just as much as like, hearing that my friend is in jail for murder. Like it's gonna it affects me. It all contributes in the same way, where it's trauma. It's something I have to really work through. And so I definitely can say that what what will always be consistent with me is that I'm writing for myself, and I'm really trying to dig deeper with my character and dig deeper and challenging myself to be a lot more vulnerable and a lot more honest with myself. I think that, like I said, Leave GROOVyie Alone was very surface level. It was real, but that was as deep as I can get at the time. I wasn't ready to dig deeper. Juicy EP, I was digging a little bit deeper. With Brown Skin Baby, it's definitely, this is the deep. It's tough, man. It's so tough to write, and that's when I know I should write about it. When it really makes me uncomfortable and I really don't want to approach it. I don't want to talk about it. It's like, bet, that's exactly what I have to do now.
Right.
So it's always going to be that.
I mean, that's lit, and I can't wait to see what your future projects will be. I feel like they're different every time, which is cool.
Yeah.
I feel like when it's something that we can, whenever an artist releases something that we can get a different perspective from, whether it's a different part of themselves or their different experiences, it's cool, especially when they package it different.
Oh, yeah.
Where it comes to us in a new way. Like Childish Gambino, like he did a whole R&B album. I was like, bro,
and it smacks.
It was hard as heck. I loved it. I was like, it was so different. I mean, unfortunately now he retired, Childish Gambino. So
he gonna come back with something.
Yeah, I hope so.
If he doesn't, Atlanta still live. We're not worried. Please go and you have a baby. Do your thing.
Don't say that. Come back. I want more Childish Gambino. But in all seriousness, what will we see from GROOVyie in the future? What will be manifesting in your future?
You will see a PhD in GROOVyie's future for sure. PhD.
Dr. GROOVyie.
Dr. GROOVyie. That dang.
Wow.
I know that was. Yeah.
Hey.
Definitely a PhD. That's my biggest, most important goal. I really don't care about a lot of different things. I really want to get into film. I've really been going. Yeah.
Independent film or Hollywood film or what?
I don't even know. See, I don't know the industry. I don't really know like a lot of different things about it. And so, but what I do understand, I recently barely saw Moonlight. I barely saw. I know I'm late. I'm sorry.
How
everyone.
Have you not seen
I know.
it? It got like Best Picture.
Why are you yelling at me? Don't worry about it. But
I just talk loud.
No, I barely saw Moonlight, and I mean, so many people. Obviously, it's about I don't even know how they identify, but it's
I will say it will
film,
take you on twists and turns.
Right.
For those who maybe haven't seen it,
I
like
saw it
GROOVyie
4
had
times in a row. Like I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
It hit me so hard, right, and like so many different people. Like I've always been invested in film and to my own way, and it's always been about storytelling. Yeah. And like I said, like I'm a storyteller, whether it's poetry, rapping, even DJing. I try to bring the audience on the journey. It's always about storytelling, and so I think that I'm really trying to find ways to show more of my personality in art form, and it's hard to do it with music because you can only do it in 3 minutes or whatever. You could be abstract and go on a 19-minute song or whatever, but it may not service to what it needs to be, and maybe that's just not my lane, but. I really want to experiment more with showing my full self in a lot of different ways. If it's screenwriting, if it's directing, if it's acting, I'm not sure. I would love to do all of it. I'm going to try all of it. Yeah. But definitely film is going to be the next thing after Brown Skin Baby, after this next album. I really want to get into it. Let me know. I'll promote the heck out of it. I love promoting independent films. For sure. Yeah, we're going to figure it out. Oh, most definitely. However, Hollywood films are great too, but sometimes independent films are just a lot more raw, and they touch on subjects that maybe are more taboo. Yeah, like for Moonlight, them being African American, right, and in experimenting Miami, in Liberty City, like a really underprivileged community, really hard city, and experimenting with their sexuality, right, and having like a romance that was not really developed due to certain. And him being in the life, it was a lot. It was a lot. And it was like crazy because it's not something that you expect. Like as soon as you thought you figured the movie out, they switched it to another version of Chiron. Right. It's like woo. And Kevin. And it's like, okay, it was beautifully done, amazing film, most definitely. But I'm excited to see where you go as GROOVyie, as Dr. GROOVyie, as Marcus. Can't wait for that. Can't wait for that. So thank you for stopping by the Chocolate Diva Talk Show. It was great. It's been super lit. Thank you for having me.
Very introspective
Yes.
on your behalf. It was great listening to you and getting into your head. Before we get out of here, let's play a game.
Let's go. I've been watching a lot of Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel. I'm loving games right now. Let's go.
I always feel like I'm Saul. Let's play a game. You're the first person to get hyped. People be like, "Oh, what is she gonna ask me?"
Cause they lame, bro. You can't be messing with these lames. Well, I was gonna ask you a question. I'm gonna ask you after this. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna ask you a series of questions, and we're gonna get into this right now. Okay. So first question: what holiday is at the end of March, which celebrates the life of a special Mexican American civil rights activist?
Okay, I don't know all my history, girl. You gonna put me on a spot like this? I don't know this.
This is the most.
Enlighten me.
He's like.
Wait, hold on.
Okay,
is
I'll
it
give
Cesar
you a
Chavez?
hint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Like
Wasn't there like Benito's
King.
like Benito Juarez's like celebration like 2 weeks ago? I don't know. It was Mexican New Year. I know that. All right, I'm learning still. I'm enlightened, but I'm trying to be more enlightened. See,
shoot,
I got it. I visited this park. It's in Berkeley or something like that. Yeah.
He's like the Mexican American Dr. King. It's like, whenever, it was funny sometimes black folks.
I heard he was like very like
Yes.
anti-women though, so I don't know. I'm trying to be real about it. Y'all don't want me. I'm trying to be real about it.
Okay.
I don't know that though. That's what I heard.
We're not gonna spread rumors on this show.
I need to read more. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I have to ask this as like a pre-question. So you listened to the Solange album, right?
Yes.
When I Get Home?
Of course. Love it.
Favorite song off of that album?
Almeida. Benz.
Sip.
And then, what else? Yeah, probably those two on top.
Yes.
Almeida, for sure.
For sure. I had to do that for my videographer.
Yeah.
We had a whole Solange debate last show.
Good. What was your favorite? You haven't listened to it?
And I told him last week.
Go. I'll take over. Go ahead. Listen to it. It's 39 minutes.
When we done, we gonna play this in the
19
studio.
songs or something like that.
Right.
Just enjoy.
Okay. So last question: top 3 qualities in a groovy girl or guy. I don't know. Whatever.
Groovy person.
Yeah, groovy person.
I was like, we going. Yeah. Top 3 qualities in a groovy person. For sure. Communication. That's the most basic thing. But honestly, dog, if you can't tell me what's really good, or at least tell me you don't know what's really good, because I don't know what's really good sometimes, then it's not going to work, honey. You're going to be left on red. I'm a Virgo, so I will do that. And so for sure, we're going to move forward. But communication for sure.
Savage.
Honestly, I got to find someone to where it's a balance between being like, you're loud, but I also feel comfortable being loud. Maybe that's just more of a me thing. Like, I have to find that quality in myself still. Yes. But it's hard for me to be loud when I'm, like, messing with someone that's loud. Like, if you're loud in public and you out here, it's, like, makes me want to kind of quiet down and not express myself. So I'm like, okay, maybe I should deconstruct that. That's probably hyper-masculinity too. But
so you're loud, but you can't have a loud partner.
It's hard. It's really hard.
It is a lot.
Like, if you going off, like, I want to go off with you, but then I don't know, it just feels weird. So we got to make that work. And number 3, you definitely got to challenge me. Like, I need someone that's going to check me, like, for real. Like, I can't, I'm already a dominant person as it is. Yeah. Like, I'm a loud person, whatever it is. Be respectful, like, don't disrespect me, but like, be able to be like, yo, you tripping, like, what's really good? Be like, you saying all this, you doing all this, you feeling all this, that's real, but dog, you are tripping, and I support you, but you tripping. Like, let's be honest. Like, you gotta be able to support me, but check me at the same time, because I be tripping sometimes. So.
Sounds like a lot. Yeah. But however, I feel like you should do a song, like, you know how Soulja Boy had the Soulja Girl song, and you got the do they got lenses in your glasses?
Yeah, these are real.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was like, I couldn't tell. It was it was like, that's clean. Like,
it says brown skin, baby.
That's fly. But the way it was like his eyes was piercing through, I'm like, yo, those songs look like they were like had no lenses in it. But I feel like you could make a song called Soulja Girl, or excuse me, Groovy Girl.
Groovy person.
Yeah.
Groovy person. We gonna see,
the
man.
Groovy Girl on the sunglasses.
We gonna see.
Bring back 06 Soulja Boy. That's all I can say.
06 Soulja Boy.
06.
What was happening with Soulja Boy in 06? Hold on. I'm just saying, I don't want to be liking and saying anybody that's problematic with what's going on with Soulja Boy in 06. Was he doing coke?
No, like, what the heck?
I heard Soulja Boy was doing coke. I'm just trying to be real, girl. I'm not trying to.
Whatever
I'm not trying
he
to ruin
was doing,
anything.
it was
way
that
after
the crank.
Was that donk time? I love donk. Was that donk time?
That was like crank that time. 06 is like crank that time.
Okay, I want Kiss Me Through the Phone, Soulja Boy.
That's like 06, 07.
Okay, I want Big Draco. Forget Soulja Boy. I want Draco. I'm trying to pop off.
I can't.
You know what I mean?
I cannot. I will not. But thank you for playing my game.
Wait, I have a question.
Okay.
How many non-black people have said the N-word on your show? Well, you can't cuss on this, but like.
Oh, never.
Okay, good. I was just checking.
Period.
All right.
No, I don't play that.
I'm going to leave with, if you're not black, don't say the N-word. Make sure you exfoliate your face and have a good moisturizer and get a good serum. You know what I mean? Get some good body butter. Brown men don't do that, and we really need to learn about that. I'm not getting at my own brown people. I'm just saying that as a brown man, we were never told that. I'm hip to it. My skin is, like, looking good. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to put people on. I'm trying to enlighten people.
Get them a Clarisonic.
I'm trying to, what's that?
You never heard?
I don't know what it comes.
I'm going to show you when we get off the air. Clarisonic is like a micro scrub brush. It's like, it's electric, and you usually use it 2-3 times a week.
It's like a Swiffer for your face or something?
Basically, it's like gives you like a face massage, and it makes. I've been using that for 2 years now. That's why I got this glow.
I hope they got that, because if not, we're doing face masks. We're going to sleep.
I can't. Well, thank you for stopping by the Chocolate Diva Talk Show. It was great having you.
Big lit, IE. We out here.
For sure. How can everyone find you, Groovy?
You can get me at all the social medias at GROOVyie. That is GROOVyie. Very easy. Or groovy.com. GROOVyie. I sound like Iggy Azalea. Like, what? That sounds weak.
Don't shade Iggy.
Like, don't shade Iggy.
I don't want to hear. I know. But I'm not going to lie. Whoever wrote for her
Team Nick Young.
was coming
Get out
for
here.
Everybody in 14.
Team Nick Young.
I'm not going to lie. Whoever wrote for Iggy, make yourself known, because they was writing her some bars.
She problematic. We're not doing
that. As always, you can find me on Instagram at the Chocolate Diva, Twitter Angelica CC Diva. You can find me on Apple iTunes at the Chocolate Diva Talk Show, and you can find me on YouTube at Angelica Cheyenne, A Darker Shade of Brown. This has been a dope show with Groovy. He's rocking back in the chair in one of these horror movies.
Oh, I'm gonna see us. Are you seeing us tonight? Are you seeing us tonight?
Is it out tonight?
It's Friday, March 22nd. You didn't mark it down. Ooh. You weren't watching out for that. It's Jordan Peele.
Okay, you know what?
Hey, shout out to Camille, who's working with Monkey Paw now. We met one time, and like, you big lit now, so I just want to make sure.
Next time you know me, we're gonna talk about that.
Shout out Camille.
And everybody have a Lit Friday. This has been Lit Show on the Chocolate Diva Talk Show with me, Angelica Cheyenne, aka the Chocolate Diva. We're gonna get out of here actually with a song off of the Juicy EP.
Oh, which one? What if I don't like it?
You know what? It's all your music. You should like it.
I don't like all my music, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll let you. Okay, since it's your
What
EP,
song were you gonna put though? Go ahead.
I was
it's your show.
Put Let Me Know.
Who was on that one? I was like, if my ex was on that one, I don't want it. I'm being honest.
I think it was a girl on it. I don't.
Wait, was that Breezy? Who was on that? Play it, home. Play like the first 3 seconds. I want to see. Actually, no. Play Not the One. That's my biggest one. Play Not the One. Let's just big that one up. Okay. I don't even like just EP like that. My brother hates it, so I can't do it.
Actually, no. I want to play Sweet Lady. I told you.
Which one was that? Wait, that was about my ex. I don't want that one. Damn.
I mean, who don't like Tyrese?